Now on show at the National Gallery of Victoria's Ian Potter Centre at Federation Square is She Oak and Sunlight, Australian Impressionism, a sprawling exhibition of more than 250 works. Some of the paintings on show are deeply embedded in the public consciousness, with the works of artists such as Tom Roberts, Frederick McGubbin, Charles Conder and Arthur Streeton regarded as such icons of Australiana. They can be seen on tea towels and placemats as well as on the walls of art galleries. While celebrating these works, the exhibition also aims to refocus attention on many lesser-known paintings and artists whose significant contribution to Australian art warrants serious reappraisal. The works of women artists, for instance, are highlighted, as is the work of Indigenous artist William Barrett, whose paintings provide some cultural perspective to the many masterpieces on show. Please enjoy this brief overview of She Oak and Sunlight.
One of the most ambitious attempts, or exhibitions I should say, on the subject that we've seen in many years, with an incredibly rich and complex structure through which audiences can explore the hallmarks of Impressionism in this country and the artists at the very centre of the movement. When we began the conversations about staging a new Australian Impressionism exhibition, it was important for us to retell this aspect of Australian art history in a way that added a fuller and more honest context to the movement. Drawing on many years of research and a breadth of material, She Oak and Sunlight offers a fresh take on the historic movement with a particular focus on the relationships between the Australian Impressionists themselves. Audiences will discover these artists in a way that is both candid and thought-provoking.
I think the purpose is to reintroduce people to the Australian Impressionists and to see them perhaps in a new way, to see that they weren't four artists all together all the time, but they befriended each other in different combinations. They weren't doing the same thing all the time. And of course, they had women friends, and they were supporting and encouraging the women artists as well. Most important is that they weren't a school. They were artists working together in different combinations over different times. Heidelberg is, as you know, very close to Egremont, but the house which Streeton got use of, and he and Conder camped at, that was at Egremont. It was the Mount Eagle estate, and so when they're working together, it's mostly at Egremont. I'm quite happy with Australian Impressionists. They allowed themselves to be called Australian Impressionists with the 9x5 exhibition, and I think that is a good title.
I think the NGV has a very strong history of producing exhibitions around Australian Impressionism. I mean, this goes right back to Golden Summers in 1985. And these are many of our most loved works in the collection. So the challenge is always to think about how to return to those really loved and celebrated works, but still tell some new stories. And I think that's what we were trying to do here, was acknowledge the importance of these works and their place in everyone's collective love of Australian art, but at the same time to recontextualise them in some interesting ways.
Yeah, so that all came out of a sort of conversation surrounding Australian Impressionism being so often framed as Australia's first school of national art, and so we really just wanted to problematise that notion within this, and also, as you said, frame it in its larger context, so we're acknowledging what came before and also what was happening at the same time as these Impressionists.
I think because it involves so many of these heroic, much-loved, iconic works, it can be easy to simplify what those works mean. And I think looking more deeply at who was already here and who was already making art is really, really important.
I guess my biggest contribution to the exhibition was the technical work on the pictures, which, as I mentioned, has actually happened over years and years. But I contribute to the planning, meetings and things like that, and helped selection and helped hang the exhibition as well. You know, things done with the best of intention but actually have detrimental effects visually to the work. There's a good example behind us here. So this is Arthur Streeton's Spring, which is in the NGV's collection. So quite a few years ago now, I had to clean the painting. I had to remove a very discoloured varnish off the surface. and the varnish that was on the surface was Estopol, which is a fluor-based material. So someone put it on, I think they probably put it on in sort of the 50s or 60s when Estopol first came out, and so they thought it was a new method and a new technology. It wouldn't have been a conservator, it would have been a private restorer, or even maybe just even an artist or something like that. But it had a huge effect on the painting, and it took me over a year to remove it away. So this is where the role of conservation science gets involved. And so my training after I did art history was a science degree, and so we rely on a lot of scientific assistance and analysis to understand the material on the top. So you identify what the material is on top, and then you work out the chemistry of the original paint layer, and you try and exploit a difference between those two chemistries to find a way to cellulose the top layer and take it away. And it was almost impossible in this case to do it, but I did manage to do it by using solvents suspended in the gel formation, and then working very, very small layers, about sort of centimetres or two at a time, under a microscope, slowly removed it.